recording this here. So we will have our front page set up and blog posts, a post page to blog, and then in our theme we will have front page.php, and we will prepare home. For now we're not gonna do anything with it, but we'll prepare it to have it there. Right now we'll work on our front page. So when we refresh, we see we bring in the header in, we bring in this content, and then we bring in the footer. And you can see it here, we say okay, get header and get the footer, and in between we only have that container with Jumbotron class bootstrap here. So let's say let's say we want our header, all this stuff here, the site title, the tagline, and the navigation to be like in the middle of the page, not full width. So we know that we can include Bootstrap 4 classes. One of them is container. If you say container class, it will be like around 60% of the width of the page, and it will be centered. And if you say container and then dash fluid, that means it will do it full width. So those are two, and I think the most used Bootstrap 4 classes, and you'll see what they do right here. So this is our header here, our header section. So we're gonna go, we can hover over and see that it's being called as header.php. That's a part of that's a component of this page. So we can go into our header.php. It's getting called here. This function is bringing that header.php and everything that it's inside there, plus some of the styles and scripts they're getting loaded. So if we go to the header.php, and we can see that WordPress will start building the regular HTML block that you all are familiar with, and then it has a little bit of other functions here. But what we're looking is where the header starts. So this is, we see here this class header, and then it has a lot of stuff that actually getting our navigation and everything else displayed. We don't worry about this PHP stuff right now. All we want to do is to add that container class here, Bootstrap class, so we get that header kind of in the middle. So let's save this and go back and refresh to see. So you see the header got in the middle and centered, and we can inspect and see right here the header. We added this container class, and you see how it's getting where is this stuff, how it's getting margins on the side and it getting centered. So you know throughout your page, on every element you add container class, it will make it this width this way. That's coming from Bootstrap 4, right? So let's say we want to do this here, and what can we do other? Let me see. I had some examples here, so I don't forget to give you some. Okay, for the header stuff.
Editing header.php.
Yes, so we see here when we inspect the element, we see here the HTML starts, and then the header, the body, then the page, and then we see header tag right here. And when we go to our front page.php, we don't see that, right? It starts from this Jumbotron, so we know that it's getting pulled into header.php. And then when you open header.php, you can actually see these elements now. Okay, this is where HTML starts, then the head, then the body, and then you see, oh, okay, this is where the header is. Let me add this class here to make it. And you can test in right in the inspector tool right here. You can remove the container class, and we'll go back. You see when it goes back to like the default one, which is whatever it says here, 100% somewhere. But when we add this container class, it does Bootstrap 4. You see it's coming from Bootstrap, it's saying maximum width is 1140 pixels in this screen size. So Bootstrap 4 has those breakpoints for different devices that they will adjust this width appropriately, so that's why you don't have to worry about those things. Okay, so let's say now we want to add background color to the whole this. We want to add background color to the whole this header section, but we only have this now, right? How we gonna add background color here? If we let's add background color to the header, just so you can see background, and then we say gray or green, doesn't matter. You see, we only have now this because we added container, it makes it just this width. So how we gonna add behind it? So we're gonna
in the body tag.
Well, let's try that. So we only want the header one to be. So let's copy this. Oh my gosh, it's giving me trouble. Where is it? Okay, this. Let's remove this background green. So if you go to, you see body already has white. If you say green, the whole side goes right. So what we're gonna do is we will go and add div like around the header, additional one, so we can say that to be 100% width, and then the header will stay inside because it has container. So let's go in here, and we are in header.php, and we see where header starts right here, and we see where it ends right here. So we can wrap it in a div, and we can, let me see how I called it. Okay, so we can call it navigation bar, for example. So we open it in front of the header and we close it below the header. And now I need to start my gulp watch command because I'm gonna do some CSS changes. So we want to have gulp running to compile our changes as we go. One trick, I guess. Let's see if I have it saved here. That would be good. I think I pushed it to GitHub though. But remember last time when we did the CSS changes and we had to go, and sometimes it's cached in our browser, so we need to clear the cache and move it again. So if you add this part, here is the enqueue where in our functions.php where we enqueuing our style.css. If you remember that when we were doing originally setting up enqueuing scripts and stuff. So what we're doing, we are adding query parameter, which is like question mark, and then v equal, which is version, and then we do this PHP function time, which gives us the seconds. Remember the seconds from January the 1st, 1970? So it every time the page loads, it will load different version of the CSS. So it never get cached in our browser. It will always refresh. But once you're done with everything, you want to remove this version thing, so your style get cached to people's computers. So next time they come to your site, if you didn't change anything, it will be served from the cache and it will be a lot faster for their load. And I think, Jim, you have this part right here. I think I pushed it because I see you trying to write it right away.
Yeah.
You have it in GitHub on that location from last time, and you can pull it from there. So we have this navigation bar div around our header now. So let's save that and go back to the front end and see when we refresh. Let's find the header. So this is our page, and this is there it is, right? Navigation bar. And you see when I go hover over it, it kind of highlights on the page right away for us to inspect. That's why it's called inspector, right? So you see it's going all the way 100%. but our header inside it's still just this. So we have a element now that it's full width, and we still have our header that it's centered inside. So now we can give this some color if you want to. So let's do, for testing, let's do background. Do you know, so you know when you do background and you do color, for example, like this, that's familiar to all of you, right? But when you do background, this is CSS a little bit. RGBA, what is that different than the above one? What can you do in RGBA rule than the above one?
Transparency.
Yes, you can set up the transparency. So here there is no way for us to say, okay, I want this gray color D3 to be a little transparent. So you don't want to change the color, you want to change the transparency. So you gotta go and do different ways. But when you use RGBA, you can convert that hex value, which is D3 to RGBA value, and then added the last parameter here. You'll see it's the opacity parameter. So let's say we do for now, like what was gonna be 250, 250, 250, 250. That should be some. That's very light gray. I don't know if you even see. You see, right? And then we do opacity 1, which is like 100%. It's full color, right? So we can click here on this square and pick some other color just to have. So you see, it's translating it to RGB, which this is equal to the D3, just different. It's equal to the hex value, but we can add RGBA here and use the same color values, but then add opacity. If you say 1, it's a full 100% the color, but we can do 0. Or 0.7. You see it's fading, so we can do 0.4. So just the color is fading, the font and everything in that inside div is full. So this is how you do background transparency if you want to do something like that. And why I'm doing that is because I want to make this a little bit gray and set up some opacity 0.50 or 30%. 0.3 is 30%, 0.5 is 50. So let's say this is the value I wanted. So we're gonna copy this, and we know our new class is navigation bar. So let's go to our SAS and custom. Those are the ones from last time. I forgot to. Let's copy this, paste, save, and make sure that our go is still running. So it ran fine, which means compiled, and we refresh now. We should have that color back here. This didn't work last time, so I made notes of ones that actually are doing something. We want to style our navigation just slightly. You can do it later at your home. Do it the way you want it. Put some borders around if you want. With the way you want to do your navigation, just style it somehow. I'm gonna give a little bit of margin and make it in the center for now, but you can change it the way you want it. And let's say for me right now, the site I'm building, I don't want this site title and tagline to be displayed in my header. So the way you do that is in your customizer. So you click customize, and there are a bunch of options here. Some of them are supported in our team _starter team right away. Some of them are not, because this is starter team. It's just some things we need to add ourselves. But this you click on the first option, site identity, and this is very important to have here. We're not gonna delete that because this was Google will pick up when it's searching, when it's crawling our site. So it's getting displayed in our tab in our browser. This will get displayed when your site shows up in Google on like beneath your title, you know. So this is very important for SEO, but we can click not to show it on our front end. So it will be loaded, but it will not be shown on the front end. So I just uncheck this, click publish, and it went away, right? So all we have now is our navigation. So we want to style it a little bit. We want to add some margin on the top or padding in between, so this gray line bar gets a little wider, and we want to give a little bit of space between these navigation menu items. So again, these are my stylings. You can change them the way you like them. So we're gonna hit this main navigation class, and you can find those classes right here when you click inspect over the one of the navigation bars, and you can see, okay, this navigation tag right here, it has main navigation class. Okay, so I want main navigation class, but I actually want to style every LI inside that main navigation class. So that's what we're gonna do here. And then SAS functionality, the way you can nest inside, you can tell it, okay, I want to style every LI inside main navigation. This is how you can do it in using SAS, right? Just nesting inside. It kind of makes sense. So now we're gonna style every LI inside that element, and we want to give it, because it's floated to the left, and you can see that when you click on LI, you can see what is already, how it's coming from underscores, and you can see it has float left. If you remove that, it has float none, but it's getting like one up under each other. So this is all CSS. I hope it's getting back to you guys that had a little bit of last year, I think you said that you have, so you should be kind of familiar to it, just to make it a little bit pretty. But you can explore and try different things and see how they behave right away, right here in the inspector, if you don't want to do it all the way inside the CSS. So since already has float left, for this to take effect, you need to say important, which means always be stronger than whatever else. So this will be the strongest. So that will make it to be like this. But I still want them to be in line. So we need to add display property of inline block. So this is display inline block. Save this, refresh. So if you go here, it has float none and it has display inline block. If we do put the position relative, this is important because when we do the alignments, so we need to add that position relative. That should be all for this. So now if we want to say in regular CSS, you would have to write main navigation and then li separately like this, and then you would have to go underneath and do again main navigation ul, right? This is the regular CSS way, but you'd be using SAS, and that allows us to do nesting. So I can go inside here and I say, okay, I want every li inside main navigation and every ul in main navigation. So that's much easier and much cleaner, kind of shorter code, makes more sense than having them all listed like. So that's one of the advantages of using SAS or less. Yeah, same thing, you have nesting in less as well. and we're gonna display block this, and we will center it, text align, center. Okay, let's save. Let's see what this gives us. So it moved all the LIs inside that UL in the center of the page, and now we would just want to give a little bit of breathing room between, give a little bit. You guys know what padding is and what margin is, right? So we want to do padding in this sense. So we want to increase the width of the bar, but we don't want to have any white spaces around. So this is our navigation bar, which is the whole thing here, and we can inspect again just to make sure that. So this is the navigation bar, that div that we wrapped around our header, and now we can style it. So we started styling it with the color, but we want to add border bottom of 1 pixel just to add a little bit of, when you do solid and you don't specify the color, it does the color of the font, so it will be black in this case, and we can keep it that way. So we want to do padding of 0.5 ems. So when you do just padding without padding left, padding right, and those stuff, it will do all around, so on all sides. And do you know what ems are instead of pixels? So if you go here and let's inspect this this font size, the way you can see, you can click compute it, and it will give you what browser compiled for this element that you have highlighted. And we can see this font is 16 pixels, and ems are whatever your default font size of your browser is. That's what 1 em is. So by default that's 16 pixels, but people with slightly visual problems or whatever, right, they increase the font size, or they have big screens so they decrease the font size, or whatever the case is. It can be different, but M will always refer to that default size of your of the user's browser. So if we say 0.5 ems, that will be half of that. So we will add, in this case we'll add 8 pixels padding on all the sides, and this is good because you don't know what people will be using, right? If you say 5 pixels and their screen is, that 5 pixels will be very little. But if you do, okay, I want to do half of their default size of their font, you know that will have effect every time the same way. The proportion will be the same. So that's why we use ems. Then we want to do position fixed, means this navigation will follow us as we scroll. When our page gets bigger or longer, when we scroll, that navigation bar will follow us. It will always be stuck to the top. If we don't put fixed, it will scroll and disappear, right? It will be on the top of the page, and as we scroll down, it will stay over there. It's not going to be visible. And in my case, I want my navigation to follow the user, right, as they read or whatever. I want them to be always have ability to click on different things. So this is why I'm adding position fixed. And then I want to say width 100%, just to make sure that this whole bar is always 100% width. And then the last one, since we're doing position fixed, sometimes some elements can get over that navigation bar, so people can't really click. And how you solve that is z index, and you say to some high number. Z index is, imagine as a layers of on a cake or whatever, right? So this paper has less z index from this paper, so I can't really click on that. I can't click to that other paper, right? But if I set this to 999 Z index, it will always be in front of this, so I can always click on that thing. So that's why I want on my navigation bar to set Z index high, so it always be nothing can get in front of it, right? Because sometimes something can be in front of it and be transparent, you don't know, but when you try to click, it doesn't click, and you say, why it doesn't click? It's because it's layered behind something else. So this is how you solve. So let's refresh now. So you see we got our transparency. You see how you can see that jumbotron in the back. That's because we set the transparency to the background, and then we added a little bit of padding between these things, between the LIs. And I think I styled a little more, but you can keep going. Just don't want to lose too much time on styling, because I don't know how you guys want to style. This is one of the examples how would I do it. So I see the problem here, right? Because my page starts from the very top, and I don't like that, because I want my page to leave room for this navigation bar when I'm on the very top. So when I inspect, I can see that my site content starts from the very top. So what I would have to do is to add margin for the width of this to be below, right? But we're gonna start creating our front page now. We will remove this jumbotron from last time, and we'll start doing some other stuff. Let me see, I have it, some stuff here. Okay, so let's say we want some. So now we start working on we loaded header, we worked a little bit on our navigation, we didn't do anything to footer right now, we'll do in a little bit. So we want to start working on our homepage content actually. So let's remove everything, we save, go back, right? So footer gets stuck to the top because there's nothing, it's just header and footer right now. So let's start with the first section. Let's say the first section we want to be full width, and we're gonna use container fluid. That's the Bootstrap class that gives us full width. And just to test, we can add again just H1 just to see something there. We refresh, there is the test, and when we inspect, we can see that this container fluid, it's full width. One thing that Bootstrap does, it adds padding, so it's not really full width. It adds a little bit of padding left and right, and this is because it's meant for like content, so you don't want your fonts, your words to be all the way to the edges. But in our case, for this section right here, we want to have full width, so we're gonna have to go and remove this. So we can go and edit container fluid class, but what would we would destroy any future use of this class. So we want to add custom class to this element, so we can trigger just that, not the general container fluid Bootstrap class. So we're gonna add, I called it in developer section, I think, yeah. So we're gonna go here and just add another class, developer section, for example. And now we know that we want to remove that padding left and right, because it's already there. So we go here, developer section. So what I like about Atom, it's kind of recognizing where we are in our folder structure, so it sees that class that we added in other file, and kind of gives us to autocomplete for us, which can speed things up. And we want to remove padding left, we want to do 0 pixels, and then padding right, we want to do 0 pixels. Save, go back, and you see now the test went all the way to the edge. So we don't have container fluid class from Bootstrap. It's coming with the padding, but we overrode that with our own class. We said okay 0, and since we are loading, you see where right here you can see why we loaded in gulp when we're setting stuff up, why we loaded Bootstrap first and our CSS after it. You see, you understand why now? Because now we are able to override Bootstrap, because Bootstrap got loaded first with a padding, and then our style got loaded after with 0, and that's why this is stronger than this, and that's why we are able to override these settings. Just an example why we did that. Again, I mentioned it back then, but it probably didn't make too much sense. I hope now it makes a little more sense. So we see that we need to add, as we mentioned, that margin to our site content here, and that site content, you see the element, it says ID content and class site content, and we can actually go and find it in header, and it gets open at the very end of the header. So that's how that header component ends up with opening that page main content div, and then that's it. And then from then on, this continues. And in footer, the very first thing will be closing that div. So we can open footer and see. So you see here, this div that closes here is actually closing div that gets open in a header. That's how everything in between it's wrapped. So now we want to add margin to push, basically we want to push all the content down, so this navigation bar doesn't get over our content. So we can inspect what is the height of this navigation. So right here we see when you hover over, it gives you the dimensions. So we see that it's 41. So let's say we want 50 pixels no matter what. We want 50 pixels, or let's do 60 pixels for example. We want to push down, so to give a little bit of breathing on our content every time. So how we do, we can go and locate this site content class and just give that margin to the site content. And that's a class, and we say margin top, and we want to do 60 pixels. We refresh now. Oh, okay, all right, so that's not the one. So you see that's pushing also our header as well. So let me see back, site content, and I used different one. No, that's the one I used. Okay, it's padding, it's not the, and we can try here. So it's not margin, so let's try padding top. You can always play in the browser itself also. So you see when we add padding, actually gets pushed down, because margin is outside, padding is inside the element, and we actually want to give the little bit of space inside the element. Okay, let's do that then. Instead of margin, well, let's do padding. Okay, so now we want to have, let's add color to this developer section class, just so we can see this section a little bit. What we want to do is to give it like fixed height, and then say okay, we will load some image there. So let's say for this development section, we're gonna do, let's do height 200 pixels every time, and leave it like that for now to see what and to give background color, I guess. Let's start with the height of 200 pixels, save it, refresh, So you see, if we inspect the elements now, our developer section is now 200 pixels height. And does anyone know how, if we set up, for example, 30 VH, if we say, let's do for the height we want 30 VH, that's CSS3, so let's refresh, and it gives us height of 324 or whatever. So what is that 30 VH, what that means? Does anyone know? No? So it's 30, so it's 30% of viewport height. So no matter our screen size, so how would you say, okay, I want this div to be always 30% of whatever the height of that browser that user is looking at is, right? So you can say, I want this element to cover 30% of my page every time to any device. This is how you would do it. And let's say that's what we want to do now, right? So it calculates that right now on my resolution, this is 30% of the height. And now we want this test, this whatever content we put inside, we want this to be in the center of this element. And if you remember from web design 1 or 2, wherever that's we working that, I don't remember, I think web 2 maybe, when you do vertical align in a div element to vertically align something in the center, remember those things? Not much. It's very complicated. It's kind of hard to me. Always been hard to do vertical alignments in CSS, but since we're using Bootstrap, right, we have classes we can use, and that's save us. It can save us all that time. We just need to know what classes to use, and I'm gonna list them here and explain it to you what they're doing. So our element that we wanna center stuff in is that developer section that we created earlier. So we want this H1 inside of it to be centered. So let's try to point to this developer section class and add some classes to it. So this is there is our element. So Bootstrap classes, I wrote them here so we don't have to search for them. If you do flex, if you do d-flex, that means, okay, makes it display flex, which is flex gives us, it's also CSS3 property or rule. It gives us a lot easier way to do those vertically alignments, different ways of content alignments, justifying grid system. It's just a lot better way of working with stuff like that. So you just say display flex, so you can use this justify content. Oh, come on, center. So this is also Bootstrap class, and what is this is doing for us? It says justify content in the center. It does a bunch of things that basically does text align center, but in a flex way. So we don't really have to know much about it. We just use that Bootstrap class, and we know that it's going to center horizontally our stuff. And then for vertical things, we do align. Oops. Align items center. So this will align our items vertically in the center, which in CSS, regular CSS, we would have to do, we would have to make sure about the display property. Is it set to inline block or block? And then to do vertical alignment, and then make sure that the height is 100% and stuff like that. It's just a lot more rules that we need to take care of. This should take care of us, for us, that centering. So let's see. Now we just added those 3 classes. When we refresh, our testing it's in the middle. How easy is that, right? And you can explore everything. All these classes you can see on Bootstrap 4 website when you click that home button, and there are a bunch of components, grid system, and they give you examples. So simply by adding classes, what the results are, and that's how you can kind of start playing with those classes and start using them, because it saves us so much time and trouble. And it works. Bootstrap 4 is always mobile friendly, right? It knows about it has all those media queries and stuff added. So last piece here, I think what we want to do is to add background image to this, right? So do you know, there is one website that I absolutely love that gives you free images that you can use in your development or anything. It's called unsplash.com, and I don't know if you ever seen that. I love that site since the first day I found it. All these amazing pictures you can use for free. There is no copyright, anything, and just amazing stuff, right? You do, I don't know, Office, and you can find bunch of images, pictures, right? Let's say I want to do this one. All right, I like it. I'm gonna save it in my team and start using it. So
You don't have to give credit?
nope, nothing.
Wow.
Just use it. So I'm gonna go in my theme that we're working on. I'm gonna create a new folder called images, and I'm gonna save it inside and say, for example, dev bg dot this should save the extension for me. Okay, so now we can
What's the name of the website?
unsplash.com. Use it for your work, guys. I mean, if you need something quick and you don't want to pay, for bigger projects, always you want to do some real photos, either yourself or to pay someone to do it, or buy stock photos of some higher quality. But for some regular stuff, I mean, this image is awesome. I like it, right? I mean, you can use when you blog, you can use some of those images if you need some image to throw in, or just great site. I like it, I think it's awesome and great. These people are amazing. They share their photos there. If I have a little more time, I would share my photos. So we want to set up this image now to be in the background of this element that we just created here, right? We want to add that image. So let's see how we do that. This is our class of our element. So we do background. Let me see. There are two ways. One way is background hyphen image, right? But then you have to set up like position of that background image and size and all that separately. So the other way you can do is this: you do background and then you do URL, which in our case it's related not to custom.css file, which is inside here. This will be rendered to the style.css. So that's in our theme root. So from there, our image is located inside images folder. So we're just gonna do images and then / and then the file name, which is dev.bg.jpg, and then you can say the other properties here, like I don't want that background to repeat if it needs to repeat, and then I want to be vertically centered, horizontally centered, or the other way around. I think it's horizontally first and vertically next. So you can do, I don't know, 50%. You can play with those settings. Right now I want it to be centered on both ways, and then at the end I want my image to be fixed and that will give us nice effect. You'll see now if everything
Background
works.
is spelled wrong.
Is it? That would not work, but
Would have been fine.
it would
Should've
just
let it
not.
go.
Yeah, you can, and then I go and see what's going on, right? Okay, so you see, this one is looking in our SAS folder, and then it doesn't have even our theme inside. So that's what I was. Sometimes that gets tricky with when you have compiling stuff. So because we said images, it doesn't have. It has WP content, but here it needs to have our theme name also, right? Actually, themes and then theme name, and then SAS and images, or just the images. So right now we need to say, how can we do that now so we don't lose too much time? We can use it straight from the site. For example, we can copy image address, and instead of downloading it to our site, we can use it straight from whatever that URL of the image is. So we can use this straight from there. Let's save and try that real quick. So there it is, it's loading in the back. So it's all stretched out because we didn't do one rule. We didn't say I want that background to be covered, to have a cover for the size, and that will stretch the image as much as it needs to cover that element, and that will change from size to size of the device width, right? If you're using on a mobile screen, it will cover that screen. If you use it on the desktop, it will cover it that way. So all we need to do is just to add, and I will give you, so we'll move along with the URL in the GitHub. I'll push the version with the URL from your local image location. And we said we're gonna do background size, and we'll say cover. So right now we're doing just bunch of CSS stuff, but that's what we said we're gonna do. We're gonna start styling our front page. So let's refresh that, and now it's something like this. We want maybe to test to see how half of the page will look like. So let's say we want this for like hero image to be 50 VH, will always be 50% of the width. So if we would pull this up on our phone, for example, it will take half of the height of the phone, right? So that's pretty cool if you want to have like hero image on your, as again, this is styling. Just I'm trying to give you some examples. The way how you do it, you might come up with your own design how you wanna, but this is how you would do it. You would create like a element div, you would add some classes to it so you can customize it, and then this is one of the ways. So I will change this to 50% because the image is that, you see the elements in the picture are kind of, I need a little more space to make sense. So let's do 50%, 50 VH right now, and we should be good with this image here. Okay, so this, let's say I like it, but I don't like this test, right? It's not really, you can't really read it. So we say that's what element is that? It's H1. So we wanna say, let's wrap this H1 in one div with a class of I don't know, hero heading, for example, and let's put that H1 inside. Save that. So now we have class hero heading and we have H1 inside that. So let's just refresh so you see that nothing changed, but actually we do have now, we wrapped similarly to how we wrapped our header inside with another div. This is how we wrapped our our test h1 in another. But what I want to do with this, first I'm gonna do something like that. I'm gonna say I want this to be white color, but it's still not readable. But now I have this hero heading around it, so I can say, okay, I want that to be width 100%. I want that to be 100% width, which it did. But now my test went all the way to the left, so what I need to do now is say, okay, center my text of that element inside. So I can do text center text align center, right? So now it's inside, but then it's not readable as we said. But what we can do is using that background RGBA again, because I want it to be black. Let's say 255 to 50. Is that black, right? That's white, so the other way. I'm never gonna remember that in my life. Because I just don't.
Black is no color.
I don't know why I can't remember. I just can't. So I always do that. If it's not 0, it's 250. I just know I'm not trying to remember. That's all. But you see, it takes me 2 more seconds to do it. So what I want, I don't like really to be black like this. So I just want to add a little bit of. I want to make it a little bit transparent. Let's see, 0.6. Okay, so this is better now. I like it more. What I don't like is it's too thin, so I want to do a little more, maybe a little bit of padding of. So if I do 1M and 0, what is this here? What is this doing? What's this doing? You know how this works? So this is shorthand for all 4 sides. So the first one is doing top and bottom, and the second one does left and right. So I said I want to add padding only on the top and the bottom, but not on the left and right. So I can do the whole way. I can say padding hyphen top 1 M, and then padding left 0, padding bottom 1, padding right 0. So instead of doing all those 4, I can just write like this, and this is top and bottom, this is left and right. So if you hover over, you see we added padding here and there. And let's say I like this so far, and here we need to add these styles to what, because this is all we're doing here is just in the browser, so we need to transfer this to our CSS to actually take effect. So we want to do this to hero heading class, and then let's go there. Let's get this hero heading and paste all these, do a little bit of indentation, save, and the whole time our gulp is running, right? Every time we save the file, the gulp is compiling everything. That's why it's so nice to have it set up first time. I just ran gulp watch one time here in the top. I left my terminal open, and every time I save, it's just compiling and does its thing. I don't have to worry about it. If I go and do JavaScript changes, it will do the same thing. It's pretty cool. I know it was a little bit of pain, but you all did great. You set it up nice. I mean, it's working to all of it, right? The problem was with that global. I didn't think of it. I should mention that in case it doesn't work, you need to install it globally so your terminal is aware of it, gulp. But yeah, we get a little bit of workaround, and it's good because it's like homework, right? Okay, we tried, we did some work, so it's good. So okay, let's say this is all right for now. We wanna of course go, and instead of saying test, we wanna do, let's say, our name, and then we wanna do new line, like a break line, which is just like enter BR. Remember that from web. And then let's do my mail, for example. and you see it's okay. We just did in the browser the color, right? So we still need to trigger inside hero. What is it? Inside hero heading class, we want to say, okay, every h1 be color white. So again, instead of writing it now separately in regular CSS, you would have to do it something like this: hero heading and then h1 and then color white. So here, because we're using SAS, we can just nest inside of this.
Does it matter the order of the nesting?
No, but it matters like indentation. So if you have something inside h1, you would have to do it inside h1.
Okay.
For example, if you have
If
paragraph,
they're all at the same level, they took the order.
so this means every h1 inside this element, and then this would mean every p paragraph inside h1. So you can have p outside, so this would mean every paragraph inside hero heading but not inside h1. You know what I mean? It's kind of, but it's so much better than when you think how you can do it in your regular CSS. It's just like, you know. So I would rather set up gulp one time to work for me, and I can use all this great stuff. And that's one of the simplest things, but for me it's very, very powerful because it saves me time. Another stuff that you can get used to it later on is using those variables, like color variables, and there are functions you can say, if I write like this way, it will calculate whatever color and add opacity this much, and can do crazy stuff, you know, if you have to do something like that. I mean, this is probably the most used rule, is just this nesting. It's so much nicer, cleaner and faster. And we do color. Oh my god, color white. And there it is. And we can do font size now. We can do other things that I'm leaving that to you. I'm just giving you examples how we start getting. So one thing I want to show you how to set up this navigation, in case you don't know how to do this. How would we change this navigation? That's all inside the dashboard in appearance and menus. And there is this menu. You see there is a front page, blog, page A, and that's all. Those are all these: front page, blog, page A, clearing floats. It has some inside. Those are here. So we can remove all these and save them like this, but we wanna, let's create new one. So what you need to remember right now, my plan was to go more in depth to navigation, but it can be tricky. So as of right now, don't worry about it. But WordPress has locations of the menus, so you can have different locations. You can have separate menu for your footer as the most the most common use case. You have one navigation that is called primary, and it's getting loaded on the top in header, and then you have footer navigation, which will be loaded in your footer section. So right now, just remember that when you create menu, you need to select it. If you're using underscore theme, you need to say, okay, I want this menu to be displayed in a primary location, which is this. So we're gonna do this right now. We're gonna click on create new menu. We're gonna call it whatever, something stupid like this. Click create menu, and we want to check this, right? Primary, so it get displayed to our primary location, which by default with underscores coming loaded in the header section. And we can create different ones, like I said, but I don't think we're gonna get there. It's a little bit more involved. Maybe we'll get in next two classes, but we'll see. For now, we're just gonna use what is coming by default. And now,
2 classes left, right?
yes. So right now we wanna add some elements to this menu, and there are different things you can do. Most recent stuff that you had, you can pick from your posts. Those are all dummy posts. You can do custom links or categories for your posts. So right now, let's do so pages. We're gonna click. Let's say we want one menu to be our front page, but we don't want it to say front page. So we can open and change the label of it. So we say welcome, for example. Okay, and then you can select like a custom links URL for now. Let's say just a pound, just nothing. It's not gonna do anything. But for link test, we want to do. Let's say we're working on our portfolio, right? So we want to do web development to be our next one. And this is placeholders for now. Placeholders for now. Later it will be pages or posts or standalone page or whatever you want to do it. So let's say here we want to do URL to be again something else, and here we want to do photography and video editing. Add to menu. Here we want to do what else we have here, 3D animation, and then
You can write whatever you want, custom links.
yes,